Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Sometimes we don't question things when we see just a title or a headline or someone making a statement. We look at it and we think, something is not kosher here. But maybe it doesn't compute at that point what's wrong with the statement. Or sometimes you immediately realize it's a lie. And you think, how can this person tell a lie like that? And either the person is lying or he really doesn't know. The problem is the person has authority. The person usually is a columnist, is a journalist, a person who writes about a subject about which he should have done some research before he starts talking. What do I have here? I have an article from European Pravda. And I was interested to see what the author of this article had to say about the Trump's doctrine. And I stopped reading the article after the first sentence. And I'm going to read it for you. European Pravda, and this is from the 26th of February 2025. And his name is Anton Filipov. We're going to go over Mr. Anton Filipov. What is the Trump Doctrine and how can Ukraine protect its interests within it? So I said, okay, that's very interesting. I would like to know what Trump's doctrine. But when you listen to someone, you first have to establish authority. So the person who's talking has to have some credentials, either coming from an institution, which I do not support you trust those credentials, and the other ones are coming from that person's direct interaction with you. That is, you ask him a few questions and he or she would answer and say, okay, this guy or this person knows what he or she is talking about. And then you give that person some authority. Not everybody who has a PhD in something necessarily knows about that subject. Remember, PhD is a very narrow, how do they call it, thesis that they did some research on. That's all. A PhD person, from all this knowledge on, let's say, sociology. He did sociology of, let's say, baboons. And he looked at the sociology of baboons with red butts. And then it's from all the sociology, they went through this tiny little thing, sociology of baboons with red butts. And that's all he knows. Better than you probably. Why? Because he read about 52 books and journals, peer-reviewed. That means they're running around one another. They didn't get outside of the box. That's what it is. So 52 books. I looked into it because, I looked into the master and PhD and so on. So that's it. The rest, they have no authority over anything. Any fucking thing. It's like a basketball player saying, I'm an athlete. I'm in NBA. Okay, well, good, but can you play soccer? Football? Oh, that's what it is, my friends. You have a PhD in NBA, but not in soccer, tennis, or whatever else sports over there. So this guy right here, he writes an article for European Pravda. And it says that aligning Ukraine and EU since 2014. And this guy writes this article, Anton Filipov, and this is the first sentence. Let me read it for you. All right, many US presidents have had their own foreign policy doctrines. I said, oh my God, yeah, that's true. That's a fact. And then he fucked everything up with this one. For example, and he chose this one. Harry Truman's doctrine laid the foundation for the United States foreign policy during the Cold War, ultimately leading to the defeat of the USSR and the liberation of Eastern Europe. So after I read this, I ignored everything else this guy wrote. This is his face. I always like to put a face on a name. Why? That tells you a lot. Now, this picture is taken with a t-shirt, with a, raincoat, somewhere in the street. This is Mr. Anton Filipov. Couldn't you use a tie? I mean, I'm not going to look over his face. That's fine. But can you, what's going on with this guy? So remember, he says that Harry Truman's doctrine, for example, he uses it as a pinnacle, as a foundation of his future arguments he's going to make here. That led to the US foreign policy during the Cold War, ultimately leading to the defeat of the USSR and the liberation of Eastern Europe. I would ask Mr. Filipov, liberation from whom? From the USSR. Okay. Who gave Eastern Europe to USSR? I guarantee you, this person will either don't know or will not tell you. The Western Europe, the Americans, the good people, the guys who laid the foundation, they gave the Eastern Europe to USSR. And they gave it not to the Russians, which he is going to make the connection probably, but to the Soviets. And when they gave them after 1945, right, after Potsdam, they gave it to Stalin. Stalin, sorry to break the news for you, he was not a Russian. His name was Vissarionovich Djugashvili. He was a Georgian. Oh my God. So he was not a Russian. So they gave to this dictator, okay, Eastern Europe, after the Western Europe fought to save Eastern Europe from evil Adolf. So you save it from Adolf and you gave it to the other guys, even worse, the communists. Djugashvili, with 20 million at least people killed in the gulags and so on, with his helpers, non-Russians, Kaganovich, and the kind. I guarantee you, if I ask Mr. Anton Filipov to write that, he would never touch that subject. His career is over, whatever career he's got. So you understand? He starts the whole thing through that. Why did he start it that way? Because he says, if Harry Truman's doctrine destroyed USSR and liberated Eastern Europe, that means Trump doctrine will destroy Putin's Russia and liberate Ukraine. That's it. So this is Mr. Filipov. So my friends, look through this, you're done. Why should I read further anything that Anton Filipov wrote when I see from the the second sentence that he is either a liar, he knows what he's talking about, which I don't think he does, he just gulped some things from college. If he went to college, that's all the professors told him. Probably a Bernstein or a Kosman or I don't know, who knows what. All right? These are the guys. These are the guys. And they start with that, and the baboons are reading. Yeah, let me read this. What was the name? Ukrainska or something? European Pravda. Yeah, man. And they go further. No, stop right there. Filipov, you should be fired. Unless you are a propagandist, which you are, or a baboon, which one you prefer. You either stupid or uninformed, or you are a weasel and you know what it's not about. I think the second is true. Because a lot of things that for instance, even talking with so-called intellectuals, even with that who are honest, they just start with some premises, and when you challenge the premises, they are like, what do you mean we challenge the premise? I will tell you two stories. Personal stories. The first one, when I was in college at Michigan State University, I had a class of anthropology. In this class of anthropology, I had two PhDs, assistant professors over there. There were two women. And they started writing on the table, on the blackboard, however you want to call it, and they put a little presentation, a PowerPoint presentation. And she started by saying that we know, whoever we is, always ask, who's we? We know that nurture versus nature is 50-50. And I said, excusez-moi, mademoiselle, can you name me or cite the study you are referring to make that claim? She was stopped on her tracks. She didn't know what the fuck I was talking about. And said, what are you majoring in? I said, no. Because if in my work, in my studies, in my whatever I need to do, my paperwork, if I don't mention and don't use the exact APA or ASA format of providing you with documentation, with the bibliography, plagiarism. You get kicked out of college. And I said, how about you? Give me the study. She didn't fucking have the study. She pulled that out of her big V. That's what she did. And you know what she did? She moved on from the very beginning. And then she was talking about eugenics. All right, well, you don't talk about eugenics. Why? Because it was one guy who implemented one. The Americans implemented that too. But nevertheless, we don't talk about the, what was her name? Worked for the women's rights. He was eugenics. But don't say that, the one, in Niagara Falls group. And don't say anything about her. Anyway, fuck her. No. But anyway, she said, well, the eugenics, and she mentioned Adolf as a eugenics and the founder of eugenics. And I said, okay, excuse me. She was like, oh shit, this guy again. And I said, why didn't you put Socrates over there and Plato? Now this PhD, she didn't know squat. She didn't know what I was talking about. Who's Plato, and who's Socrates? She didn't know who those guys were. I said, well, why do you say that? Well, I explained to the PhD laureate who Socrates and Plato's were. And I said, what do you mean? I said, well, in his book, The Republic, Plato, using Socrates, uses the analogy of eugenics right there. I made a paper in college about that. And I got a little star in my political philosophy class. Why? I said, clearly. So I said, if you don't mention them, why do you mention these guys? Because obviously you want to paint it as an evil thing. She moved on. Again, stop them right in their tracks, my friends. They don't know what they're talking about. They just start nature versus... and again, I'm going to tell you another story. I had in a sociology class at the Michigan State University, a professor, a Jewish professor, communist. He said it. He said communist, socialist. No wonder. Anyway, and he was very old. I don't know, about 70, 68, 70 something, very old compared to me at that time. And we're talking about something, and he mentioned the Federal Reserve Bank being a federal government institution. And I said, no, that's not. Federal Reserve Bank is a private bank made out of what? 10 or 12 private banks that you and I cannot buy shares in. We are not allowed. Only they are allowed. You know who they are? Okay. So I told him, no. It's a private bank system. That's the Federal Reserve Bank system. And I like this Jewish professor. He was knowledgeable. That's why I was like, is he playing dumb with me? Or he really doesn't freaking know? So I let it go. I didn't want to, create a, panic in a classroom like, hi, what are you challenging the professor? Yeah, I was challenging the professor. His name was A.K. First name A, last name K. Polish name. Anyway, so Polish name K is AK-47. AK-47, okay. So after the class, I went and I spoke with him, and he said, well, you told me about the Federal Reserve Bank. Let's check the computer. He pulled up the laptop over there, and he looked at the Federal Reserve Bank, and he said, oh, yeah, you're right. Now, you are about 70 years old. I don't know how old he was. 70, about 70. He looked 70. He was riding a bike. So anyway, so he said that, and I was like, I didn't know that. At 70, you find out in the United States of America, your country, and I'm a foreigner, a baboon, just came from the boat. Hey, land ho, we're here, baby doll. Okay? Bananas and coconuts, we're in the land of the opportunities. I just landed a month ago, and I tell you, an American scholar with, at that time, many years back, about $100,000 a year with a research professor, Mr. AK. I teach you in your country that the Federal Reserve Bank, owned by your people, is not a federal institution, but it's a private bank? Again, my friends, for example, Harry Truman's doctrine. First, Harry Truman was a war criminal by any minimum standards of war criminals. He dropped 2 atomic bombs, 2, on 2 civilian cities. You can't make shit up. I don't care the reasons. You dropped it. I will tell you why I don't care about the reasons. You dropped 2 atomic bombs on 2 civilian cities in 6th and 9th of August 1945 in Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And you would have continued next one, Yokohama, and so on, if the guys would not unconditionally surrender. That is, Everything goes. Was that ass, mouth, vagina? That order especially. So ass, not the other way. That's the way we like it, okay? We. Remember, always ask who's we. So here we have it. And Harry Truman, he uses it. No, he was a war criminal. He dropped 2 atomic bombs on 2 civilian cities, killing, I don't know, 200,000 people, 100,000 people in pop. And you tell me about Adolf and Stalin? These guys killed in 1 second Hiroshima, 1 second Nagasaki. 2 seconds, he killed more than these guys in 1 second. He was more prolific than those war criminal mass murderers. And you mention him? Off, Mr. Filipov. So, remember, certain things like, why do I wear a seatbelt? Did you ask this? Why do I need to wear a seatbelt? I don't want to wear a seatbelt. Why do I have, let's say, 70 miles per hour speed limit on a highway, on a freeway? I don't want any speed limits. The baboons should have it. I don't want any. Why not wearing a helmet? If I wear a seatbelt, why not elbow pads? Or, I don't know, mouth guards or pussy pads when I'm driving? You know, you can't text while drive, but you can eat. Or you can blow people up if you drive. What the fuck is this? Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just. God damn it.